this economy is so bad that more and more people are actually moving back to their parents' house. And that is actually really sad. And some people haven't even left the nest yet. So I did a poll today and I've asked people, hey, when is it time to move out? And I've asked, is it 18 to 22, 23 to 29, and 30 plus years? And it's really interesting because people said 18 to 22 is about 30% said, yep, it's time for you guys to leave the nest. So then the 23 to 29 years old is about 40%. So that's what I would have assumed also. And 30 plus was 31%. So a lot of people are still actually saying, hey, if you're 30 years old, you can still live with the parents. And so when you look at the data, this is from the Wall Street Journal that I read, is percentage of people between the ages of 25 to 34 are still living with their parents. And it is above 20%. It's almost 20%. And it was over during the pandemic. So are these shocking numbers? Let me know down below in the comment section, because women, it's way less. So now let's look at what we are talking about. It is America's young men are falling even further behind with moving out, buying a house, and just kind of living the American dream and doing things. So I've asked you guys in the poll, what's your story? And so people responded and said, every situation is different. My girls both work full-time and are saving for their first house. They contribute and respect home and us. I know people where the kids don't work or have any motivation to be on their own. So I kind of see like why this parent says, hey, I still have my daughters living with me or I have my kids living with me. I want to provide the best for their capabilities and the best of my knowledge. So I let them live at the house. They might contribute a little bit. They have money to buy a nicer car to kind of get a head start in life, right? So I can see that. And this is why I'm making this video. It is about this person right here. Because this person, I feel like, has been sold the dream, and then it just got kind of rug pulled underneath of him, right? And this person had to do it because of economics, right? So, well, I'm about to be 30-ish and wish I could move out. I had to go back to school because my previous degree is useless and AI can and will take my job. So be compassionate. So this is why I made this video. It's not about these people that are still choosing to do it or because they want to do it. No, it's because people like this that got sold a false hope, a false dream of, hey, if you get a college degree and you can go out into the real world and you can make 6-7 figures, and then all of a sudden you're actually done with college and you see all these boards, and when you sign up, they got you in this big auditorium. Everything's fancy, everything's nice. And then once you graduate and you walk down the line, you throw your hat up and graduation comes, and then you're like, okay, it's now time to actually find a job. And it's just crickets. You don't hear from recruiters. You don't hear from the job market. So you're basically left out to hang out to dry, right? And then it said, and this is not the only one, because somebody else said that also happened to me in my 20s. I chose a sociology because I was learning behavior, blah, 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 blah. My second degree is entertainment, and it took me time to break into afterwards, right? So this is the people that are actually putting in an insane amount of work in their 20s and trying to get the degree. They're like, hey, if I do this, then I'm going to make this much. Because I remember, this is not the only time I've talked about this. And this is not the only person I have conversations about this, where they're like, hey, I have gotten this degree and it's supposed to pay me 80, 90,000. I think I spoke to somebody that was in San Francisco that went to the fanciest art school in San Francisco and said, oh, I have student loan debt and I can't repay it and I can't do nothing. So this is an economic disaster that these people, these colleges are allowed to advertise. Hey, if you come in to us and you get a degree, doesn't matter if it's in finance, if it's drawing, if it's history, what it is, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna be making $80,000, $90,000 a year. And then you come to find out, oh, that was a dream. There is no $80,000 jobs. And if they are $80,000 job, they are far and few and in between, and you don't know where they are. And so then it requires you to either to do crazy moves or to do other things. And so let me share you a little bit of my story. So my story is I've graduated from the military, so I did in Switzerland, the military is mandatory. So I did my time. I came out and I was unemployed for a little while. So I was like, okay, great. This is the first time in my life, because after university, I kind of was like, hey, what do we do? So the military summoned me, and then it was like, okay, I gotta do something. So I went into the military service, and then I came out afterwards and I said, oh man, there's nobody telling me what to do, because before I was an adult. And then I came out and said, great, I can finally do what I want. And so the military actually helped me file for unemployment. And so then I got everything kind of done. So then I got everything done with the military, and they said, hey, we're going to pay you. So I made about $2,000, $2,500 after on the unemployment. And in Switzerland, unemployment is 80% of your salary till $12,000 a month. They'll pay you that, and it's for 2 years. And so I was like, great, I'm going to go travel. And I did that. I did like 1 or 2 months, and then all of a sudden, the unemployment office, you actually have to go in and kind of talk to them and see what they can do. And so you have appointments, I think, every month, and they want to, talk to you, see where you're standing with your job application. And the first month I did, I was like playing the game. I said, I'm so stressed out, I can't do it. And so she's like, okay, just get I think it was like 10 applications I had to send out. And she's like, okay. So I filled out my 10 applications, and I was on the next flight out to, I don't know, I think I went to traveled Europe a little bit. And so then at the end of the month, they say, hey, this is your appointment. And the thing is, they don't tell you when your appointment is. So they'll just tell you, you got to be here on a specific day. So they'll tell you like 48 hours beforehand. And if you don't have an interview scheduled exactly that day, then you're like, okay, you got to show up. So I was, traveling for a month, and then all of a sudden she's like, hey, your next interview is in the next 48 hours. Come in and we'll chat about it. So this is about two months after my unemployment. And she's like, okay, so you had your first month. Where are we at with applications, where we're at? And she's like, oh, I was like, I think I was even in the United States or somewhere. I was somewhere, and I didn't show up. And so then they really ding you. And she's like, and I wrote this sobby emails like, I'm burnt out, I can't do it. And I try to scam the system, right? So I was like, I can't do it. So she's like, oh, well, that's a no-show. So we're going to deduct, I think she deducted like 50% of that month. And so I came in the next month afterwards, and she said, well, if you want those days paid back, you gotta go to see a doctor and get a doctor that you were like burnout and all this kind of stuff. I was like, nah, forget about it. So she said, well, you're in month 3 now. And in order for you to continue, with all these interviews and all this other stuff, we need to see how good your interview skills is. So let me start signing you up for stuff. And my eyes went big, and I said, signing me up for what? She's like, oh, well, we partner with universities and colleges to actually teach you and look over your resume. So we give you a little time to, settle in your unemployment. And now we're paying you basically for your 40 hours a week. So we're going to have you a few times a week show up at a college, at a job center, or at a college where you sit in a classroom with somebody that's going to help you find a job. And we're going to sign you up for etiquette classes and all this other stuff. And I was like, you're going to sign me up for what? And she's like, yeah, this is just what we do. I was like, okay, my days of unemployment has come to an end, because for $2,000, I'm definitely not going to give the state or whatever I was making. I think I'm like $1,600 after. I was like, I ain't going to sit in classrooms writing applications, doing all that. So went to resume, got a job, and I got a job in air conditioning, in HVAC. So I did air conditioners and still lived at home. So I got HVAC. I did all this repair work. I did installs. I ran installations team after a year. So did that. And then after 2 years, I was still living at my parents. It's like, you know what? I'm now 21, and it is time for me, 22, it's not time for me to change. I lived at the house long enough, so it's time for me to kind of figure something else out. So that said, I was like, what do I want to do in my life? You know, if you're in your early 20s, you're so naive. You think about, you know everything and you can do anything, right? And I was making pretty good money. I was making about 70 plus $1,000, and I didn't have to, I think I paid my mom something, but that was it. I was paying like 70, 80 grand. And in Switzerland, 70, 80 grand is probably lower tier income. And I didn't have to pay any taxes on it. And so I was like, cool, I got all this money now, so what am I gonna do? So I moved to France for a little while. And I was like, oh, okay. So I moved to France for a few months, came back, said, that's not it. Did something else, went back to work, tried to find another job, and went back to work. And then I said, you know what, this isn't for me. And so then I moved to the United States. I was like, see how this is. And then I met Allie after a year or so in the United States, fell in love, and this is where I'm at now. And so the moral of the story is that if you rely on, oh, my college is going to do this, you're just not going to make it. You have to do your own research. And when I went into my degree and I was looking for it, I was just trying to find an entry spot into electrical engineering. That's what I did. I did like electric motors and all that. And I said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I tried, and it's just so boring. It is so mind-numbing that I just can't do it. So I had to find something else. And a lot of these people are in the same bracket. Just like I said, that with this other comment, that you just have to figure out a way how you can make your degree profitable. So I went into a program where my employer paid for my college, so I didn't really have the student loan burden over me. But there's so many people that have that, right? There's so many people that have all this college student loan debt, and it is so important that you know where your journey's going to go or what you want to do with your degree. But when you're in your 20s, you're in your early 20s, you don't know anything. You don't know what the life's going to hold, where you're going to go to, or where you're going to end up. And so I always tell people, and people ask me, what would you recommend? I always say, leave the United States for a few months, or wherever you're from. If you're from India, leave, go to another country for a few months, if you have the capabilities, obviously, right? If you're from Thailand, try to just go to neighboring countries and just see how life is over there. And then you come back and you have a whole different view of how things run. And maybe how the new country does things you might really, really enjoy. Or how your old country ran stuff isn't this bad after all, right? And so it puts stuff into perspective. And when you moved around a little while and you actually lived in another place, you might see like, hey, they do things a lot more to my character than I actually like. And then you can see about working remote or doing something. So it is so crucial for young people to kind of figure out what they want. But we can't really blame them, right? Because when you go into college and you're like, hey, I'm gonna get a degree in design. I'm gonna get a degree in art design. And the college even markets this as $80,000, $90,000 after college, and you can't even find a job. I think it should be liable. I think that's false advertising. So if you have a college that says, or a university that says you can make this much money afterwards, and then there's just no jobs, no pay, no nothing, and then you go into the world and you're like, hey, I got a degree that I'm not even using, so then just to get one, it's like you could have done that online, but you went to the fanciest art school, you went to the fanciest place to get it, and you can't even find a job. And there's so many people. I mean, it's mind-boggling how many people there are that are in exactly that field. And the university should come up with the money and say, you know what? If you cannot find a job, we're going to help you with student centers or anything else, because it's just so brutal for these people that go in, come out, and then it's just nothing. It's crickets, right? So it's like, oh, we're having a party over there. Come over at 9. And you're over there at 9, and there's just nobody. I was like, oh, this wasn't right. And so when I did my university degree and all that, I just couldn't do it no more. And I think so many people have the same kind of story where they go into it and they say, hey, I just can't make it. I just can't make it. and I just can't make it in my field, so I do something else. I become an entrepreneur and do entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship, I'm telling you, if you know entrepreneurs, those are some of the hardest working people. And the journey, the ups and down journey to kind of get over things and do stuff is just, it's a journey that I love, but I don't recommend it to people. And they say, oh, I want to become an entrepreneur. Do it on the side. Do it on the side, because man, you have the highest highs when you're making money, you're signing clients up, you're doing great. But man, you're also gonna have the lowest lows if there's no clients and you don't know what's wrong and these people aren't coming in and you gotta do payroll. You gotta have the bills, the overhead. The monthly cost is just there. So yeah, it is absolutely brutal. And you just gotta see a cost benefit analysis to see if this is a good thing. And when other people say, oh, I had to go back to school in my 30s to do all that, I think that that was the absolute correct thing to do. If you figure out like, hey, I did this, it's rather you do it in your 30s than you do it in your 60s or in your late 50s or in your 40s, right? And so your 20s should all kind of be figuring out where you want to go in life, where you want to go, travel, do stuff, and just see, hey, this is where I want to be, this is where I want to go. Because I also seen a trend of people getting divorced and then moving back with their parents when they're in their mid-30s. And so they can't afford it, so they move back in with their parents, and then they kind of do that. And so these are also really tragic moments when you realize like, hey, my life kind of fell in shambles, and so what do? You kind of move back in. So I don't fault anybody to because they live with their parents, or if they decided to stick around for longer with their parents or not, because hey, your dream might have be a homeowner, and you're gonna work at your mom's house till you can afford it, and then you buy something. And I can't fault you for that, because hey, if that's your dream, you should go for it. But I know for a fact that most people should 100% rent first. Don't just go from your mom's house and you didn't go and buy your own house, because there's nuances to it. There's nuances to it. And you might move. You might do what I did. Move from Florida to California to Nevada and figured out that, hey, this is where I'm gonna stay for a while. And if you're gonna buy something in another state, or you're like, I'm gonna, right now I'm here, but then my job requires me to go some other place, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, I should do this, or I now need to rent it out or sell it, and the market's not good, and your mortgage is too high to make a profit, your house is a liability, right? So yeah, over time the market might bail you out. But hey, if you're young, you should rent to see where you're gonna end up, because there's stocks, there's indexes that can make you a decent amount of return also. It doesn't always need to be real estate. So let me know what you think about all this. And I appreciate you guys. If you haven't, I'm really trying to buy LinkedIn software for the channel so I can see about the job market and whatnot, but it's $12,000. I just got my YouTube check the other day, so it was, instead of $500, it was like $400. So I still need $11,600. So please like this video. If you're thinking about becoming a channel member, it's like $2.90. That would really support the channel. So I appreciate you guys, and share this if you have somebody that needs to hear it. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.